balanced panel in that way.
Yes,
Perfect.
yes.
So now that we have gone live, so let's get started. Namaste, good
Yes.
morning, and welcome to an all-new LinkedIn live session organized by CIVOM. I am Akshay Bajaj, and I serve as the co-founder of Global Learning Space Network. On this special occasion of Mother's Day, I welcome everyone joining us live from different parts of the world. Today's theme for the session is how mothers are influencing the evolution of education. The description of this theme goes as this live event will discuss how the lived experiences of mothers are driving a demand for changes in education. We will discuss what mothers want from the education system and how their desires are shaping the future. Without further ado, let us do the Shubharambh of this session by introducing the guest panelists. On first, we have the principal architect, founder, and MD of Biome Environmental Solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, here's architect Chitra Vishwanath, the visionary behind Biome Environmental Solutions, leading over 500 sustainable projects that blend ecology, inclusivity, and indigenous wisdom. Her work reimagines architecture as a force for environmental and social regeneration. And what becomes even more special is the fact that Biome has designed numerous schools over its 33 years of practice, with a strong focus on creating spaces that foster learning, inclusivity, and ecological sustainability while reducing long term costs. Chitra ma'am, it's an absolute delight to have you with us today.
And thank you, Akshay. Thank you, Yogi, for inviting me again. I'm very happy to be in this session. And let's start. Yeah.
Welcome.
Please introduce others,
Yeah, sure.
Shivani especially.
Thank you. On second, we have the director of CIVOM, Mr. Yogendra Patidar, an alumnus of JNV and EDII Ahmedabad. His entrepreneurial journey began in his 20s, and today he leads CIVOM, that has emerged as a trusted name when it comes to developing future-ready school infrastructure across India. CIVOM is dedicated to creating transformative learning environments that demonstrate pure integration of human centric design, global best practices, and pedagogical insights that result in learning spaces that are both functional and inspiring. In recognition of his contributions to educational innovation, Mr. Yogendra Patidar was honored with the 40 Under 40 Award by BW Business World Education in 2024. Welcome to this session, Yogi sir.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Happy Mother's Day, in advance.
Super. And on third, we have the CEO and founder of SensoryALL. Meet Shivani Shah, an architect and accessibility consultant who is passionate about creating inclusive spaces for everyone, especially neurodiverse individuals. As a founder and CEO of SensoryALL, she is a champion for inclusive design in India. And Shivani has also been recognized for her work with awards like the Smart City Innovation Challenge and Inclusive Cities Award. Shivani ma'am, it's such an honor to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, and very happy to be here and looking forward to this conversation.
Perfect. Now let's get started with our session. Today's LinkedIn Live has three phases of 15 minutes each, where we'll ask some fantastic questions to our guests on board. And all I can say is this session is going to be amazing. So, the first phase is mothers' experiences and evolving expectations. And the first question comes to Architect Shivani. Considering your expertise needs of mothers, particularly those with children who are neurodiverse or have disabilities, shape their expectations from the education system. All yours.
Right. So, I think in my experience, what I have mostly observed, and we must acknowledge that most of the times the primary caregivers are mothers. And specifically, a lot of burden falls on the mother when the child has a disability or has a neurodiverse condition. So, her role not only becomes of a care provider, but then she herself is going through a lot of emotional, mental, and structural challenges. So often we have seen mothers feeling very isolated, unheard, overwhelmed, and definitely in such cases there is a need for support. So while we are discussing what is the expectation from their needs that shape the education, I think that expectation is more of their right, that they should definitely be able to have certain kinds of environments where they feel more supported and more heard. While we also look at mother's expectation, a lot of times we think that mother's expectation primarily will be for the diverse need of their children. And what completely gets missed out is that diverse needs of mothers are also there. And so while we acknowledge that there are different learning styles and different kinds of sensory challenges and different kinds of challenges that children will be facing, mothers are struggling themselves a lot. So I think one of the foremost thing that we can acknowledge while we look at this challenge of what an education system or infrastructure could provide is to provide mothers with a safe and conducive environment where they can be in an educational setup. A lot of special schools where mothers wait for their children while the therapies are happening or schools are happening are not even able to provide a comfortable space for mothers to sit or talk to each other. So I think those parameters where the information is provided in a proper manner and they have spaces to sit, relax, and talk to each other. At the same time, there are proper areas to wait. I think those very small changes could bring a lot of difference in how mothers' needs could also be addressed while they are trying to take care of the needs of children over there. Now, while we look at the needs of children, again, we must acknowledge that all children with neurodiversity are different in many ways, and it's very difficult sometimes for mothers as a caregiver also to understand children. A lot of time they go with a trial and error method. They try to do things for their children to understand and interpret how they will respond and would it work or not work. So it's very confusing and overwhelming in that sense. So another expectation that mothers might have is that there definitely should be knowledge should not be kept within the system but should be shared in a very accessible format with mothers while their concerns are also taken into consideration. So I think those kinds of forums are very important where diverse needs are first understood, acknowledged, and definitely it's difficult to provide specialized environments every time when we look at children with neurodivergence. But I'll talk about this in the next phase a little bit more, but I think what mothers expect is definitely reasonable accommodation for each of different children with different needs. So, yeah.
Mhm. Thank you for counting like how mother becomes a prime caretaker when it comes to having kids with diverse needs. And yes, thank you also for keeping the point that we have to provide safe and conducive environment for mothers in learning spaces. And yes, the point of accessibility to knowledge by encouraging forums that discuss about neurodivergence is quite commendable. Now let's move on to the second question for architect Chitra ma'am. Ma'am, from an architect's perspective, how are mothers evolving lifestyles and family structures influencing their desires for the design and functionality of learning environments?
Thank you, Akshay, for this question. And Shivani, your inputs were extremely valuable and insightful. So, what's happening in our cases? Biome has designed many schools, like you mentioned, and I would say the three kinds of schools. One where, say, it's women driven, the education itself, educationists are women who are coming, and these are the private schools. Then we have designed schools for children with disabilities, and that's also the ones we've designed till now have been women driven. And I would have some things to inform Shivani on that. And the third one is where there is an NGO or a forum or a foundation which is led by a team of both the genders and is driven. But in the first category, where is school led by women educationists, I find all of them were mothers who found a lacune in the schools their children were going to. So they decided they'll make a school for their own child, but also have more other children come through. And so they end up studying about various education possibilities. So and what I've found is a diverse methodologies, pedagogical methodologies. So Montessori or approaches have redesigned, including Waldorf. So it's not only for being different, but it also, what one has seen in the schools, a deep desire to experiment with new learnings, but also new ways of interaction, and a commitment to the community, and a commitment to also exploration, which should be there in schools. So they don't find that idea of exploration in the conventional ones. But, and that's the last bit which I'm saying, these are always coming from a very privileged surroundings. They are not from underprivileged spaces. That's why you find that these mothers are able to experiment, as well as the future mothers who come, or the future children who come to from the other mothers who have studied about these kind of pedagogical properties, that they also come there, and they allow for this possibility that I can explore this and I don't have to worry about going through CBSEs or the normal boards. These have been very privileged mothers, and it's always been like a group of mothers who come together and sometimes meet these schools. So that's it. But can I give an example for Shivani? So Shivani, redesigning a school has been going on for about 5 years and it's under construction, and hopefully this year it will be fully constructed. It's Sai Kripa Special School in Tirupur. And Kavin, the lady who came forward to make this school, she's so dedicated in terms that and this is for underprivileged children. So the mothers are also encouraged to be part of the school, either as caretakers within the school, because they know how to take care of these children who have these disabilities, and they know it. And what happens is they're now in an environment which is extremely caring. So they are working, they get also paid, because most of them, because of these children, they are not able to hold on to a regular job. So they get a job, they look after, and they become also teachers. So it could be something we need much more than uh, we need a total complete atmosphere within the place with
Right.
mothers in these places. Yeah.
No, no, I think you're absolutely right about how these spaces empower mothers in different manners, and they take up not just the role of caregivers, but then they become teachers and facilitators for
Yeah.
many different children.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very nice point that you've put across.
Yeah. So that is the school is doing. So I think,
It was quite a unique example of community collaboration where parents are coming together for the
yeah.
learning of their kids. And
Yeah.
thank you, ma'am, for highlighting how schools should look towards exploration of diverse pedagogies and experimentations in those learning spaces. And moving on to the final question of this phase, Yogi sir, I request you to add CIVOM's perspective on how CIVOM's work reflects on the increasing demand for more flexible, inclusive, and supportive learning environments that cater to the varied needs of families and working mothers.
Uh, Thank you, Akshay. I would again start with the idea which I generally keep talking about is when we design a learning space, the human centricity is a key of it. Some way. Uh, the whole idea of that, we are human, and that the emotion and the connection we carry with each other is need to be really driven. And as humans, we are social. That connectivity is being a social being is very important. So when we look at a design, we try to see, is it coming as a complete environment for rhythms of life, work, caregiving. This is what is needed as humans. We cannot intervene it as a corporate styled line authority hierarchical system. It has to go very human. If you're talking about schools as a key principle, or learning as a key principle somewhere, because if you put into any structures, we for a long period we had made our education as a mass education and a training system. and that's where it fails a lot of time, because it's not that personalized, it's not connected to human as their own being. And people are doing great without schools, dropping out from schools, and then being in the schools. So the idea is, life teaches you differently, which is a real way of how human interact with each other. So similarly, how this community design can come down to school. So I know an example of Kai early years when we were talking about, and it's very sensible in both the ways, in terms of commerce, in terms of design, both. So with Kai, the idea was, look at the mothers in a city like Bangalore. When you're traveling, you're dropping your kids, and you want to go and pick it in the traffic. Okay, and this is a 3 4. In early years, it's only 4 5 hours. Okay, you have to go back and do it. Okay, so 1 hour for dropping, and 1 hour for picking it up. How it can be more connected, community connected. So they started with a community center with the idea of that mothers who are about to conceive, are pregnant mothers are part of that community. They're coming and sharing feeling with each other. Okay, suppose that they have gynecologists there. Okay, then when the kid comes out, there's a program with mother toddlers. Okay, where both of them learn together under the expertise. Then comes out programs for mothers. So if they're dropping their kids, and they have workspace where they can work, there they can cook. Okay, where they can find groceries. Okay, so it's like complete ecosystem. Whatever they can do at home, it's like an community design, where post your where your kid is in the learning environment, you are in your own working environment, and it's connecting a bridge between both of this. And that at the same time becomes a commerce also, because you are not putting all the load for your fees to your parents. In that way, you are giving them this facilitation for others to connect around. So there are a lot of thinking in that sense, that how do we look at the whole family needs, which is connected to this child's caregiving. Because think of that frustration and disappointment which you are getting into traffic, is going to get late to your kid eventually. Okay, because they are more muses than an adult. So if you think this whole emotional perspective also go to them. So how do you make your whole family become connected to this idea of caregiving to the kid? So which is what need to be done. Like Shivani was mentioning about inclusive journeys in these whole processes. Okay, so how do you make those inclusive journeys when parent is coming to into let's say welcoming spaces in a school? Okay, how do you include that portion of it? So my point would be, if it really try to see it, we have to see it, learning spaces as joyful. It has to be built with the love, care, in nitty gritties of how human really prosper. So we had to understand this particular part of it.
So thank you for sharing that very unique example of Kai early years and how we have to place family needs on priority in designing spaces for parents in school. So that calls for the close of the first phase. Now let's move on to the second phase of this session, that is designing for inclusion and empowerment. So the first question again comes to architect Shivani Shah. Ma'am, what are some key design principles and strategies that can be implemented to create neuro-inclusive learning spaces that supports the diverse learning needs of all children and even empower mothers to be more involved in their education?
Right. So I'd like to begin by just rephrasing what Yogi sir said, that first of all, forget about neuro inclusive, inclusive, accessible. Just a learning environment needs to be made with love and care, and it should, when children are there, it should feel like a cocoon, like it's nurturing me, it's supporting me, and it's a safe space for me to be. I think the idea of safe space, irrespective of if it is a neuro inclusive or not neuro inclusive, I think it's important that children feel that they are able to express and they are safe. And I think design plays a big role in ensuring that children feel safe. At the same time, parents feel safe that their children are safe. So, a lot of times, and I have lots of interesting examples to talk about. So, parents really want to be lot involved in their child's journey towards learning and growing. Specifically, if they are a child with disability, with so many vulnerabilities, a parent want to closely observe the child and see how they are growing and learning. And one of the things Chitra ma'am said, that because of this, they also start being a part of the ecosystem themselves, because yeah, earlier they were waiting and then now they are a part of the system and they are learning. But then parents or so one of the interesting examples that was there is the ability to preview a space is very empowering. So while you have spaces where children are growing and learning, and constant interference of parents, and what we have observed in special schools, that parents want to constantly see their children, and it's not possible because it just doesn't create a very conducive environment for children to learn. So is there a way to provide a very playful way of providing a space to preview or see children from a distance and be comfortable, but then be okay that my child is doing okay? So I think those small niches or small cutouts or small areas to just oversee children would be very important in any learning environment. And also it's important for children because it improves predictability in a space. So specifically for neurodiverse individuals, the way they process information, they require a lot of structure, visual and physical structure. And if a space is not predictable, and if it is designed in a way that they are not naturally while we say intuitive design is a principle of universal design, that intuitiveness doesn't come naturally for a lot of neurodiverse individuals. So it's not that after 4 5 days of being in a school I can intuitively say that this is the place I have to wash hands. So a lot of cues are required, but at the same time, previewing a space prior. So if you have a wall, you have punchers, and before you enter a playground, and while your stimulus levels are changing, can you see a little bit of the area slowly? So I think previewing and transitioning becomes a very important part of how we move from different scales of the spaces, different environment, inside, outside, number of children we are seeing and interacting. We've like in my experience, I've seen that previewing and transition becomes one of the most important design principle. The second thing which we had observed is the access to a private space. So I'll just give an example of one school in Chennai that I work with. It's a special school for multiple disability, and there were some young adults, so starting from the age of 12, 14 to 18 years of age, who have started developing a lot of aggressive tendencies, because of course they are going through puberty, so lots of changes are happening in the body, and most of these were boys. Now what do you do? And while we talk a lot about sensory spaces, so I had proposed that why not to create a calming room. And you won't believe. So first of all, the biggest argument that we had is it really important to have a space for a child just to sit? Like, what are they even doing? Like, why should we invest, or we don't have so much space and you want us to make a space for a child or an adult to just come and sit? And we had a very interesting discussion with the founder of that organization, and then she said that when you want your tea break, no one is asking you where you can go and just sit to have a sip of tea. Then how can you control in what way this adult should be able to take a break, and why should they just be sitting, right? So I think that idea of giving that agency to children from a young age, and slowly providing it more in terms of infrastructure. Earlier you provide agency in terms of choices and maybe doing a few things, or maybe the reinforcement that you give, but as they become grow towards adulthood, I think the choices should be given spatially. So in what space I want to be, in how much time do I want to be, and we ended up creating a calming room. And again we had discussion regarding should we have a blind or should we have door. And again, the entire special educators, they all came and said, no, 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 we want to see what the child is doing inside. What if something happens to the child? So we are talking about a controlled environment, which is a school, inside which we have a controlled environment, which is a room, and inside we have the child or the adult. And still there is so much fear that what can happen to the. So I think again, so we ended up not having the door and we started having the blinds, and it worked perfectly fine, and there was never an issue. But then teachers were all happy because they could see the child, preview the child. And so I think those examples say that when neuro architecture principles are only to be, it's just a way to provide dignified environment where choice is possible, and a lot of love and respect is available at no matter what stage of your growing journey is there. uh, and I think children should experience that much earlier. So yeah, I think that could really help.
Okay, so we had some very interesting points coming up. Like, the way you started the sentence here. Yes, love and care has become the key theme of today's session of Mother's Day. And then yes, we have to give agency to learners while they grow. And the last point was quite well quoted. Neuroarchitecture is a way to provide dignified environment to learners. And while you were speaking, this also reminded me of two examples that Yogi sir and we were going through during Pulse when we invited Chitra ma'am about the Mathru School of Disabilities and the triangles and geometric forms that you included there, and also the natural light for those learners who are impaired with vision. So that brings me to the question to Chitra ma'am. Ma'am, how can architectural design contribute to creating learning environments that are not only functional but also promote a sense of well-being, safety, and empowerment for both children and their mothers?
Yeah, and I think that's a premise of universal design. So when you do universal design, all this comes up, and where you have to design for even the left-handed. So you you have to be in the shoes of each and every person who might be occupying the space, and that's I find that's the easiest way of designing and experiencing. So, like for the new, even in a school like Yellow Train, where it is mixed students, we created spaces like caves, but we didn't have to. What we did was we didn't make a special room, but used architecture. So there's this ramp, and it gives you a space which you can go under it. So it gives you the calmness of the colors we use, the kind of seating we did, and it really is getting used quite a bit in that sense. So different places, the caves become very important, and whatever Shivani said is something which we follow. How do we open up the spaces to play, or when you find too many people coming together, how do you introduce crowds slowly and steadily and allow for places for exploration? And it's very difficult, I find, Shivani, in the sense that yes, we do it with a lot of intuition. We are going to be reading, we're going to put things, and we still, I think many a times we don't know what more could be done. So, what I like is that we have to leave not a physical space, but a probability of a space in future where we can say, okay, we can add this. This is a new learning, and let me. Is there a place where one can add? And that's very important. That flexibility in the space and flexibility even in the or agility in the architect's mind too. That when we go and see the construction and the use, I say, maybe here I did something wrong. Can I change it? Do you have funds for me to change? And Shivani, again, in Bangalore, T2, the Terminal 2 has a calm space for mothers and children. So, in a public space, also, you need them in supermarkets and other places too. So, there is no one way of doing, but it's always learning and implementing. And then we always have the issue of cost. And so, you have to be agile and really use things within what's available for you in space and cost and the budget. Yeah.
So, thank you, ma'am, for highlighting that point that architects' mind should have the agility on their mind while they are designing learning spaces, and also having flexibility in future to add spatial elements to those learning spaces. That is to Yogi sir. Sir, please elaborate how CIVOM is approaching the design of learning spaces to ensure they are adaptable, inclusive, and responsive to the changing needs of families and the evolving roles of mothers. I think that's a favorite question of yours. So please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you. See, in that context, we need to really understand, uh, today the roles of mothers becomes roles of teachers, and teachers roles becoming roles of mothers. It is, you have to have both the roles playing around, because if you really wanted to make it a continued learning ecosystem, that both things are there. From changing needs of family, today awareness, from this whole information literacy, it's so high. Okay. And at the same context, we are having one or two kids, not more than that. So now this becomes, your whole focus when you become a parent is on those one or two kids. And look at the intensity in that rarity, versus what we used to have about 5 kids or 7 kids in in India earlier. But having one or two is need a lot of focus and attention, and it goes both the ways. So I always say, where the heart of mother meets the wisdom of teacher, a child can find both wings and roots together. So that is where we really need to see that, how does we this program get continued. So at CIVOM, a lot of things which we try to work around is, maybe doing a flexibility by design, that where this continuity can work around. So one of the principle which we work around on pedagogical aspect is flipped classroom. Okay. So idea of flipped classroom is, how do you take your classroom teaching in your house, and you come to school with questions. Okay. So the power in today's context is, can we give kids a power of questioning things rather than taking it from teachers? Because teachers are no more the source of knowledge only. Okay. They are, may able to help you how to learn rather than what to learn. So that what to learn can be done at houses with mothers. You know the context of your subject and chapter, but you go to school with more curiosities, that why I'm reading this, how it's going to help me around. So all that. So looking at this flipped classroom model, had both the context. Your mother becomes the teacher, your teachers becomes the mother. So earlier we used to have this reverse models of it. So this is what flexibility by design, that we shift around adaptability, that you can do these two roles. And where I believe, if we can have this power of curiosities built around the classrooms, is where then a real learning is going to happen around, rather than mugging out the systems. Second thing which we always also try to do is giving them ability to experiment in the classroom, or in the studios. So think about, if I have some curiosity, and if I can handle it in the studio itself, not waiting for a laboratory period to come down and go in the lab and do it. Okay. Look at the connection I can build for my memory, remembrance, and real learning as an experience. So and this is what, when you go to in the houses, you eventually do this way, that the moment you get something. So if you look at today's generation, they're more like makers. They don't think too much, that you need this much experience to handle something. And toys, tools are so much given to them, that they can right away give you a model, or prototype around it. So supporting and solving those things with this. uh, Third thing which I try to look at in schools is, how do we create an environment which is more than a PTM. Okay. So building an environment where parents become a stakeholder of this. So we're working with a couple of schools where we have a three-way conferencing, where one of the time I presented. So three-way was teachers, school community, and parents. Okay. So it's all three coming together, and which is all three together deciding what is good for the kids, and what should be the next plan of infrastructure, or a growth, or pedagogical, or shift they are trying to do. So what are those key needs? So think about this three-way idea. So when we do this whole idea of PTM, it becomes more extended, that they can come down to that zone, and they also know what's happening inside the school. So school also gives their plans, programs, their reviews, feedbacks, and then kids also can come and explore that. So today's PTM, if I'll again give you the example of legacy, where PTM doesn't sound like a PTM. There is no teacher around it. It's kids who go and tell them that what I have done here. There is no teacher involved into this, because the parent and teacher is already connected on different level of plan for the school, but not for the growth of this. So it's like core responsibility of growing this. So spaces that can help, that kind of inclusive support for the whole family in this. So That's how I probably try to see it in this whole synergies. And plus, like I said, continuity of the whole program. So when you, as a parent or as a evolving family, you genuinely start knowing in early times that what kids is doing, where interest is in building blocks, or his interest is in paints, arts. You start mapping out all those future of those kids very early. So that's a continued journey where evolving parent can really connect with the whole philosophy of school, the growth of the school, and then their area which where they can come and intermingle together, not like just a visitor. You don't see them as a customer, rather than you see them as a stakeholder of the whole process, and that's where the space or connections are built.
So thank you for bringing that flipped classrooms model that was quite new to us, and the interchangeable role of mothers and teachers. And yes, the example of PTM that you just shared reminded me of our times when PTM used to afraid us. Parents and teachers are meeting, they would be complaining to each other about our performance, about our scores. But when I saw some other school in Indore, they held a PTM, and they also invited the grandparents and the parents to participate in sports activities, cooking festivals, and so on. So that was the vibrancy I got to know about.
Because here today we are not, going and blaming that you are the one. See, there are two kind of models earlier where parents used to go to teachers and say, "Ki, sir, आपको इसको मारना है, मारो, पीटो, but make him something."
Right.
Where the parents were not aware, so they feel they were in farming community and they give kids, adopted to their teachers. But in today's model, when parents are aware, it is becoming core responsibility. So it is not blaming that he's doing what, or school is doing that, versus it is how both of them as a bigger community is solving that equation for them.
Commendable. That did remind me of my dad's words. Those were exactly what you told to keep my son in discipline and be strict. Cool. So let us head on to the final phase where we'll have common questions to all the guest panelists. So the first question is, how can we empower mothers to become effective advocates for educational change and active partners in shaping the future of learning? Chitra ma'am, would you like to go first?
Well, um, I'm coming from a very different space when I replied this. I am seeing that our governance model, our society has given up on shaping schools or shaping education system at all, and it's gone into private hands. And then it's also because the patriarchy in the society forces women, gives women the responsibility of children. My granddaughter is in Finland, and I notice the schools in Finland. I go there, we go there very often, and we see this. Here, the society or the government is the parent. It leaves the woman, now I'm not even thinking of it as a mother, it leaves the woman to be creative and explore other avenues. Why is our governance model, which has given up on education, and why is the education so expensive? I studied in Kendriya Vidyalaya. Fees, okay, it was long back, was 3 rupees a month, but still very affordable. If the fees is affordable, I don't think the parents are going to come and ask you questions. Why are you not teaching your child? Because you are not a vendor in that sense. And the child, everybody was free. So this cost of education has made to look at schools as service providers, and not as spaces where children come together. There's an age group which comes together as learning and enjoying and being together, and where parents are free to go somewhere else. And I also find this whole idea of expecting or making parents give inputs. It's, to me, it's like it's a community of uninformed at sometimes. It's like Brexit. You took the vote and you got the worst of the situation. Yeah? Here, you have to, in fact, you have to have well trained teachers, and they should take the responsibility of taking it forward. They have to be respected, given much better salaries and education and training. And they take it forward. They are the experts in education. Which mother would be expert in education, especially if that mother is not even well educated? Or, in fact, wherever CIVOM or your group is for the privileged. But otherwise, you see the underprivileged women, they really work hard to send their child to the school, and it is somebody else who has to support that education because that mother cannot do it. And so you don't get the best schools because you can't afford it. But why is there something called best school? Let it be equitable. That's education we need. We don't want the mothers to be having one more uh, burden on them, that now let's educate the child, let's look after the child. Make the society aware that education is a societal responsibility, not just of the family, not just of the woman. I'm sorry,
No,
I'm
no,
just
it's a
breaking
beautiful
this.
one. It's a common responsibility of society, where education is a key part of all of us.
Yogi sir, this also reminds me of a quote that you have often shared in some of our session that in your village they had a saying, it takes a village to raise a child.
Right.
If you
Yes.
remember.
It's a common responsibility because we are going to choose what our generation is going to be, and all of us has to come down to that level. No, I'm also a Navodaya Vidyalaya student, ma'am. So I understand where you're coming from, and today that it's need to be repaired, of course. And then I would say, from what Akshay was trying to build around that, of course, empowering mothers only can take one go, in that sense that how they choose the direction for for the society. Because as a caregiver, I would say, that emotion which is needed to be done, that's the only take I would definitely involve, or include in what Chitra ma'am is saying, that uh, how does teachers training which happens out had to have that emotional version of uh, of a mother, which can make education for you. Because the moment you have that care coming as a mother from a teacher, be it a male or be it a female, the whole learning would become very different segment altogether. And it may be at
Yeah,
all levels, like you were giving an example that most of the mothers or parents who's started schools. Okay, so this started school by that, that deprivation, that if I cannot have this right for my kid, there would be a lot of kids who's not doing. And I know a lot of schools who started with the parent community. They gone into the city and they couldn't find the school they needed. 20 parents, 50 parents came together and funded that and did it for the society. So there are kind of models which is that's the only role which we might have to see, that can we become that co or catalyst in the whole process, to get
yeah,
it a shape, or this thing. Because I feel the moment government look at it, they try to see it, what is that revenue point, how many taxes we can collect in another 10 years down the line, and what should be. So think about it, what we study is being chosen by government. Now the curriculum decision is been taken by government. The marketability of this content is coming from government. So they try to see it from what is that need which is coming for future.
it should
So
not
yeah, it
be.
should not.
It
Yeah,
should
so
not be.
that is
Yeah,
where
yeah, it should
whole
not
society
be.
is getting into that flawed idea of democracy to designing for few humans. So gone are the days where we would choose a liberal arts, or liberal studies as a subject. You try to see what is
Yeah.
the whole idea is we became commercialized. So like Shivan is mentioning about calming zones, or zen zones, for that matter. I was trying to look at can we make our schools in the idea of zen schools. Now the school's only goal is to make you aware about yourself, elevate yourself rather than anything else. If I start getting aware, every such subject would be easy for me. It's like the master thinking that what I am and what is my awareness. The school's goal should be that, rather than giving this bits of pieces of Zenism, versus if I get to know that I am this person. Now what a beautiful school we can design around, and then he can choose whatever shape, whatever way he want to or she wanted to. So yeah.
Hmm.
So
Right.
Yogi sir and Chitra ma'am, like Chitra ma'am was speaking about Finnish education system, and so yesterday we were reading something about the Dutch education system, where as soon as the primary gets over, they get trained into the vocational education segment, and after that they can choose which theoretical or the practical subjects they want to get into.
And
So quite valuable.
this
Yep.
is what, we were talking about the Swedish model also. Why we need these coachings at all? The whole idea of coaching is to pass in competition, versus if this 3 years or 2 years of coaching can go to really being into the industry and learn from the industry and choose that, I want to be electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, or architect, and then go for that, rather than pushing your time for just competition. Why do we wasting this? And today's electrical engineer, if you cannot figure out what is ground and phase, what is the whole point of being that electrical engineering? So that's need to be really changed around. That commerce has to go out of from that to real human touch.
So rather than a new concept of maker spaces, that should already be in the education system so that they get on through it
Yes.
earlier in their life. Perfect, perfect. So next question, that again we have a common question. So I'll request Shivani ma'am to answer this first. What are some strategies that educators, institutions, and policymakers can adopt to better engage with mothers, understand their needs, and collaborate with them to create more equitable and effective education systems?
Right. I'm actually still on the previous question and I'm still thinking
Yeah, please.
about what Chitra ma'am said and Yogi sir also mentioned, but what ma'am said. And in one answer, she highlighted three, four different nuances. And I think I feel like mothers, there's a lot of expectation from a woman and a mother, and this is making it very difficult for everyone to live in a system where it looks equitable. It's overburdening on one side, and it has been like that since ma'am mentioned we are in a patriarchal society. It has been like that, but after so much of change, it is still like that. The expectation of nurturing and care is is so much expected from a mother, uh, and
Overwhelming.
and
Yeah.
we usually say that. So the first question when it says that what can we do to empower our mothers better, and so we usually discuss that if we want to empower mothers, we actually need to empower fathers, and that is the only way mothers can be empowered. But because I think mothers are trying, like ma'am mentioned, everything that they can. Even if they're not educated, they're trying their best to find ways to provide for the child, to learn new things, to even be there, be present. But they're lacking support at all levels, right? It starts from family. So household responsibilities and basic chores are also on the mother, and then they have to take care of the child, and it has not changed so much. And like I'm still on that point where we talk so much about doing design and consultation, and it has to be co-creation, and we are speaking so much about mothers being the stakeholders of design. And I kind of am stuck to the point where, ma'am, you were mentioning that how much of a responsibility it is for a mother to even now engage in shaping the environment of the child, where we might really need uh, experts or good teachers who can take that decision for them, because they might not even have the right idea. And this is one thing. And I'm sorry, Akshay, I'm not answering the second question you asked, because I'm still going on in my mind with the previous question, and
No,
I
I,
just
I,
can't
I,
move on.
I echo with Shivani, and a lot of time we talk about in office is, should we be parents? The whole idea it
Exactly.
starts at there. Are we, capable enough to have that responsibility of being a parent?
Exactly.
Should parenting must come with license? Okay.
At the same time, I feel like, as a so first of all, when I was looking at, okay, this is a Mother's Day live, and I have not experienced motherhood right now. So how can I really be a part of this talk? Like you were mentioning earlier that you are not a woman, so how can you be a part of this? But I think I am at a stage in my life where I'm taking a critical decision, where do I really want to be a mother? And this is like, it is a beautiful experience that I think everyone should be able to do. But because of the way it has become so impossible for a mother to be able to have her own life and aspirations and goals at the same time, be a part of a society where children can be nurtured with other support and community support. So I think it becomes very different when my mom took a decision. I think she had no idea what she was doing. She married very young, and I think it's most for most of the people, they didn't know, and it is how it used to work. Now we know and we are aware, but we are finding lack of support to be able to go through uh, such phases in life. So I feel like empowering a woman and a mother, we need to empower the entire community, society, and specifically the fathers so much over
Sure,
here.
I
Yeah.
would add to that, in two sense. If you look at joint family systems, which comes
Hmm.
from rural areas of India where there's still joint
Hmm.
families. Like Akshay was mentioning, it's whole responsibility of the village. So mothers there are not worried at all. They just make the baby feed and get it to the community, and the elders of the village raise them up. And when they become hungry, they again go to house. So that's how this has been worked around. And today, nuclear family.
Well, that doesn't work in
Every cases,
every
yeah. The point is,
case,
most of it,
and
yeah. But
that's some kind of a golden
yeah,
takes
no,
in the
I,
development
I've been raised into that
in
village.
those places.
We are been there in those villages. My village is still opts in that system. And also the second thing which
Yeah,
is
but
coming
then
around here,
it, it,
yeah,
it
agree, which is very
doesn't
true.
empower the woman.
Agree.
She's not empowered to go and, let's say, take up a job. She's
Job
just
agree.
going to be cooking, okay, in that
Hundred
kind
percent,
of a setup.
100%,
Yeah,
100%. And second
Exactly.
thing,
I'm
which aids from an urban context is the moment you become a nuclear family, I feel because I am father, the moment you hold your kids, and it is biologically researched, thinking. I don't have that paternal feeling till it was been conceived, but the moment you touch the kid, your baby, the feeling instinct goes started differently, then you start becoming aware and wanted to contribute to his. I know how many sleepless nights I had with my kid, because that connection is got established. And in nuclear family, when you're both of them together, you don't have your bigger family to support it out, then a father's emotion gets striked up. So it is maybe because the whole biological connection comes when you touch it. you know Before that, I feel it may be very two different journeys. But yes, it is just context which I could to take it from my life.
So this did remind me of Japan's example where kids actually go alone, right? They aren't any supervision while traveling from home to school, and so Japan has maintained that model, as I can see. Chitra ma'am, what would be your take on this discussion?
Mine is very clear. Yes, mothers would be interested in getting the children educated, and in fact, it's great that uh, somehow or other, if there is an educated mother, she would surely get her daughter educated well, so that the girl comes up in life. And it's very important that girl children get educated. That's when the society improves. So, and the society gets to be a lot more equitable when the women are educated. There will be a problem of dropping population, but that's okay. The planet needs lesser people. That's okay. But we'll have better systems in place, because then you have equity, you have possibility of spreading the resources. So I feel that mothers should be involved in education, but the mother herself should be educated.
Perfect. So, yeah, today's discussion turned out to be a very wonderful one where we delved deep into insights that weren't talked about earlier. So, right from Chitra ma'am to starting about how we have to shift the responsibility not just from mothers, we also need fathers to take care of the education and the learning systems for kids, and how diverse pedagogical approaches and experimentations can be explored. to Yogi sir sharing how family needs should be placed on priority while designing spaces for parents in schools, and how Shivani ma'am also shared the prime example of providing safe and conducive environment for mothers while they are waiting or while they are visiting those learning spaces. So that calls for the conclusion of the Mother's Day session. And happy Mother's Day to everyone watching us live and to all the guest panelists. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Chitra ma'am. Thank you, Shivani ma'am. Thank you, Yogi sir. It was an honor to host you for us.
Thank you everyone for
Thank you.
pulling out
Thank
time
you.
for
And it
this
was
wonderful
lovely to
session.
meet you, Shivani,
Yes,
even
ma'am. It
though.
was an absolute pleasure to meet you, to hear you speak, and
Yeah.
share a space with you. I think.
And
Thank you,
keep in
Sivom, for
touch.
having me here.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for the amazing work Yogi and
Yeah.
Akshay you both are doing. Thank you very
Honor.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.